right, welcome back to Mondays Down South, everybody. Excited after coming at you after week 9. We got Zach and Cy as always, and then another return guest this week, or sort of a return guest. We got my buddy Lou here from Raleigh on again. For those of you that are avid listeners, you might remember him from a spot during our live draft show where he came on for his Dolphins reaction. So big Dolphins fan over there. I'll keep the intro short since everyone knows you, but anything you wanted to lead off with? Got the Dolphins hat going?
Yeah, no, just excited to talk some more about Tua.
Glad to have you. Yeah, I figured it was timely. We had you on for the Dolphins pick when they drafted Tua, and now he's a couple games in. Looking pretty good. We'll dive into that. But what about you guys? Anything, Zach, Cy, before we get into hot takes?
All I got to say, Lou, is I was between a waiver wire pickup of Drew Lock or Tua, and I went Drew Lock this week. So Drew Lock is playing against the Raiders, and Tua is going up against the Chargers. It was a close call. This is like a must-win game for me in this league. I'm running like 5-4. Went Drew Lock. I'm not sure how you feel about it, but maybe after this podcast, if you convince me otherwise, I'll start Tua because he's still not picked up by any team. So we'll see throughout the duration of this podcast here.
Well, I think those are both good picks, but
my one thing about the Dolphins before we fully dive into it later is it's going to be fun to see, if I believe correctly, I think Tua and Burrow do battle in a few weeks, and that's going to be fun to see as they battle for the spot to be the second best rookie quarterback in the NFL after Justin Herbert. So
well, Tua has his crack at Herbert this week.
He does. I'm excited about that. Although, let's be real. We'll talk about it later.
We'll see how I feel after this week.
Yeah, we can jump into hot takes here.
Lou, you want to lead us off?
All right. Well, it's in the sense of talking about the Dolphins. I think my hot take would be that the coach of the year is going to be none other than Brian Flores. Once the Dolphins make the playoffs, come off a struggling season after a few struggling seasons, Brian Flores really bringing this team back around, and I think he's going to be coach of the year.
I like that pick a lot. I never considered that until you just said that, but one reason why I really do like it is because he is most likely, and correct me if I'm wrong here, he's one of the only successful coaches post-Belichick, someone who previously worked for the Patriots, who has experienced success at the professional level. We look at some of the more recent coaches that used to work under Belichick's arm and are no longer very successful. Josh McDaniels, never really super successful in Denver. And then Matt Patricia in Detroit. Detroit has not improved one bit, not even their defense. And so Brian Flores is kind of the odd man out when it comes to that. And because of that fact alone, I think he would get my vote as coach of the year, despite the fact that the Dolphins are not a shoo-in for the playoffs yet. That 7th wild card seed certainly helps. See if they could sneak in there or not. But I don't have them winning the division, but I could certainly see them sneaking in as a wild card spot. So I like it.
I actually really like that. And I will say that he'd probably be at the top of my list, although I do think he'll get some stiff competition from Mike Tomlin, who currently has an undefeated team. And that man just finds a way to win no matter what situation he's in. So, but I like that. The one other thing I want to point to is, what does this say about Adam Gase, man? It like cracks me up. Like in some way, somehow we always find a way to tie it back to that. And what does it say that Kalen Ballage came out this weekend and balled out against for the Chargers, and he averaged under 2 yards a carry last year for the Dolphins. Zach knows that very well, given the fact that he drafted him in our fantasy football league this year. So I just thought I'd plug that in there. So
I'll say about Dolphins running backs going to other teams. They do decent as a Dolphin, and then they go to these other teams and they blow up. You look at Kenyon Drake. I mean, he's staying healthy. He's the guy there, and it's the same thing. But in terms of the coach of the year again, I think you're right. If the Steelers end up going undefeated or lose a game or two even, and I think Tomlin might have that in the bag, and that's gonna be hard to argue. But Brian Flores is one of the coaches under Belichick who is, you always talk about the coaches under the Belichick tree that just struggle, and he's so far he's looking pretty good, but still a lot of season left. But I'm liking how it looks so far.
Yeah, no arguments here either. I actually thought Flores could have even, not in the talks to maybe win it, but like in the upper ranks of that even last year. with what they did down the stretch. But I'm gonna plug you again here because we were talking 2 weeks ago. We'll get more into the Dolphins maybe in the recap segment. But you just casually brought up a hot take 2 weeks ago when you dropped your record projection on the Dolphins. So I don't know if it's changed because this was before they went on the road and beat Arizona. But do you have an updated final record projection for the Dolphins this year?
So I told you what I said, 10-6 before this week, right? I think I'm going to stick with my 10-6. I'm tempted to say 11-5, but I've learned over my many years as a Dolphins fan not to get too excited, but or too excited, should I say? But I think 10-6 is a reasonable. I mean, their next 4 games they have the Chargers, they have not in this order. They have the Jets, they have the Bengals, and what's the other team? They have another. I can't remember the other one is, but they have a pretty good 4-game stretch here, and then they play the Raiders, the Chiefs, and the Bills to knock it out. So those are tough ones, but they have a relatively easy schedule coming up. And who knows, that last game against the Bills might be for a playoff spot or might be for the division, or Bills may have already locked it up and that might be an easy win for the Dolphins. So
we'll see. We'll call you back at the end of the season, see how that holds. That's a bold 10-6. But what about you, Zach, Cy, hot takes? What do you guys got?
I can go real quick. So I'm going to take mine to college football. My hot take is I think a 4 or 5 win team actually goes to the college football playoffs this year because of how abysmal some of the other conferences are. So I think right now you have, and by the way, for the audience that's listening to this, I'm talking about the Big Ten here and the variety of undefeated 2-0, 3-0 teams that are not going to have the opportunity to play each other. So inevitably 1 or 2 of these teams, whether it be Indiana, Ohio State, Northwestern, Purdue, Wisconsin, stay undefeated throughout the course of the season, they are certainly going to be trying to rep this Big Ten brand at 4-0 or 5-0 at the end of the season, expecting and quite frankly demanding to get into the college football playoffs. I think this just goes to show you the absurdity of this year with the COVID season. But if we look at some of the other conferences, Sai's been nagging on the Big 12 as he should be, because they're just straight up abysmal. After 2 weeks, the 2 favorites, Texas and OU, had already lost. OU had lost twice. At one point, they were 1-2 during the season. So they're a wash. I would expect Alabama, maybe A&M, maybe Florida. So, let's just say 2 of those teams get in, and then you have Notre Dame and or Clemson from the ACC side. So you're either going to see 2 teams from the SEC and 2 teams from the ACC, or you're going to see 2 teams from the SEC, 1 team from the ACC, and then somehow, some way, some 4-0, 5-0 team from the Big Ten gets to sneak in. So I think that that's going to happen. I don't agree with it. It actually infuriates me because if that happens, the Big Ten gets away with murder again. However, that's my hot take, and it was just something to bring up to your radars. I didn't quite think it through until I was looking at the standings and I was like, oh my gosh, there's only 3 or 4 more games during the season. Ohio State and Maryland aren't even playing this week because of COVID. So Ohio State could finish at 3-0, 4-0, and they could be knocking on the door expecting a bid. So that's my hot take.
I would be very frustrated if that happened. I'm over here shaking my head for a reason because that's, your sample size isn't big enough for you to warrant being in that Final Four. I know you kind of got screwed with scheduling. So in that way, I do kind of feel for them because who knows, what if they are actually good enough to make it if they played a full schedule? But at the same time, that's really unfair to some of these other teams that end up losing 1 game on a really tough matchup or have 1 off week and had to play a lot more games. Although I do hope that if that does happen, we get them as a 4 seed because I really hope they play somebody like a Bama or a Clemson at the top. And I just want to see how badly they get steamrolled so people can laugh at these people for putting them in the first place. So that's the one takeaway I'll take from that if they get in.
Can we be clear? We're talking about Ohio State here, though. If Ohio State doesn't lose, I don't care how many games it is. With Justin Fields back there, it's going to be tough to argue the talent and the eye test. But and I would not want to play Ohio State as a 4. I don't care who we are. But it's
a good point.
I'm not as big on Ohio State as you are personally, but fair enough.
Fair enough. Sai, you got a hot take? I'm going to pivot sports. So.
Yeah, I'm also going to pivot sports. So you could start us off.
All right. Yeah, mine, I was really fired up about this. It's been about a week now, so I've had time to simmer down. But in case you missed it, the Boston Red Sox rehired Alex Cora as their manager. this week, which to me is like just pathetic and disgusting. I mean, for those that followed closely with the Astros scandal, he was the one he was the ringleader within the dugout. It wasn't AJ Hinch. AJ Hinch tried to stop it. And I personally don't even think he should have gotten a job with the Tigers, although that's probably more punishment than him not getting a job because he has to manage the Tigers. But I mean, the fact that the Red Sox had Cora on their staff, he gets hit with the 1-year suspension as he should, and then naturally you kind of have to fire him. That should be it. And it's one thing if another team picked him up, but for your own team to say, all right, you served your suspension, we got you off the payroll for the year, and now we're just gonna, hire you again. Like that's just disgusting to me, honestly, considering that he was the main ringleader in the dugout, which I think is proven at this point, along with some of the key players like Beltran. Like, I don't think he should have gotten a job in the in the game ever again, much less with the very team that he was managing for at the time. Like, you would think that would just, you would give up after that. But I just think it's a horrible look for baseball. It's a horrible look for the Red Sox, who, I think, as we know with the Red Sox and even all Boston sports team, aren't necessarily the classiest at all times. So it's just a bad look, and it's just another stain on baseball, which is really going in a bad direction, which is hard for me to say. But
well, speaking of, you talk about the Sox. You want to talk about controversial hires. Look at the other Sox with Tony La Russa, which pretty soon after came out with the news of his DUI and all the crazy things that he did. Apparently showed them his World Series ring to try to get out of it. And he's already like a dude in his like mid 70s. And that team is one of the youngest, like most dynamic, most expressive teams out there. And you got a guy like that at the helm. I mean, no, all bias aside, I don't know if you guys saw, but Marcus Stroman going out there tweeting saying, like, I would never play for that guy. I don't care what amount of money they gave him. I wouldn't play for that guy. Like, that's what I feel like a lot of young players feel. And you're sitting here with the White Sox having hired him, which is extremely frustrating. I guess the Marcus Stroman part is a non-factor because I got to plug my Mets there. Took his qualifying offer. I'm stoked. Uncle Steve is in the house. I'm hyped about that. But questionable hires wise, the MLB has done a pretty awful job this offseason in general. I mean, whether you want to talk about the Hinch one, which I agree with Ev, not as bad as Cora, but then you bring Cora back, and then now you got a guy like La Russa with some of his information coming out. That's 3 of like the few jobs available. So the majority of hires have been more controversial than not, which is pretty awful look for the MLB. And just in general, like Manfred's managing of the MLB. I also don't know if you guys saw, but the Dodgers apparently now have like 9 cases of COVID post World Series. So that's also not looking good. So just overall in general, the MLB is just taking it to the face right now. So
yeah, they botched that Turner situation. I don't know if you read any of that news, but they didn't basically suspend him at all or fine him or anything, because it came out that the MLB just completely bombed that situation. As a whole. And just to add on to La Russa, another hot take: will he even make it to opening day as their manager? With how bad the reaction to that has been. And you got to think, I mean, there's been like talk in the past of, him like being a borderline racist. And you talk about a team with some, like, a lot of, African-American young talent. Tim Anderson as probably, one of the faces of that team. And he's also known to be a no fun manager. And talk about a young team that wants to have fun. Another awful one. But I digress on baseball. If there is some shining light, Trevor Bauer, who is kind of the face of the Make Baseball Fun Again movement, for those that follow him, won the Cy Young tonight. So that was great to see. His first Cy Young. So maybe a shining light there. But yeah, been a tough offseason already for baseball.
Yeah, I want to give Shane Bieber some love, too, for winning in the AL because he had an absolutely absurd season. Even though it's a 60-game sample, his K-9 was ridiculous. So shout out to Bieber as well. We'll jump over to one more sport, the NBA, which surprisingly, I know it ended pretty recently, but there's been a lot of things floating around the rumor mill. And one of the big things being discussed is the Houston Rockets situation with Russell Westbrook and James Harden, and whether those guys will be sticking around or whether they'll be traded. And I was seeing today reports of Russ wanting to be traded because of, and I quote from Shams, who quoted Russell Westbrook, he wants more accountability on the floor and wants to be the floor general. The guy that went off in the playoffs and was absolutely awful for his team more often than not, one of the reasons that they couldn't close games out, wants more accountability on the floor, and wants to be a floor general. Russell Westbrook, I hope you get traded to the New York Knicks after making a statement like that. And you can have all the accountability playing for that organization as you want, losing over and over and over again when you say things like that, because the Rockets embrace you with open arms and you let them down. I'm sorry. I know I keep coming off as a Russell Westbrook hater, but that one gets me. And then on the flip side of that, James Harden is being spoken about a lot in rumor mills for trades. And apparently some of the teams interested are obviously we know the Sixers, because as we know, they hired Morey, the XGM, small ball, all that going on, and they have the pieces. But also apparently the Golden State Warriors, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Denver Nuggets are all in conversations regarding teams that are interested in acquiring James Harden. And all of those kind of have some form of weight to them. If Harden really does want out, all of those teams could put together pretty viable packages. And the thought of that is just mind blowing to me. So, but here's my hot take with regards to Harden. If James Harden ends up on the Golden State Warriors and willingly accepts going to the Golden State Warriors, I think his legacy will be worse if he wins a championship with the Warriors than if he were to stay in Houston and not win a championship. That's how I personally see it. So that is my hot take with regards to James Harden and to Russell Westbrook. And I just wanted to put that plug out there because this is all super hot news today.
I don't disagree with that. I just want to bring it real quick back to the accountability thing with Russell Westbrook. This is also the same player that was the only one on the Houston team to get it, I believe, ejected from a game or got somebody ejected from the game. This guy was screaming at babies after he hit a layup. He was screaming at Rondo's brother. If you guys remember that, got Rondo's brother tossed out of a game. Like, this man is like the antithesis of accountability. So I just thought that was funny. And I would love to see Russell Westbrook get traded to the Knicks. That would make my evening. It really would. That's all I got to say on the matter.
Triple doubles for days, baby. Triple doubles for days.
As they go 30 and 53 or whatever.
Exactly.
30 and 53.
Exactly.
I'll say he's the kind of guy, though, that definitely at least thinks that he can go to the Knicks and fix a lot of their problems. That he can be the guy and and he wants the accountability because he thinks he can fix those problems. And whether he can or not, I wouldn't think so, but
definitely.
I have a good question here. What do you think is going to be a higher number? The amount of wins that the Knicks would get with Russell Westbrook or his 3-point percentage?
Oh,
I would turn that into a.
Oh, that's a good over under.
Might have to turn it into like a little poll for MDS.
Yeah, let's turn that into a poll. If I had
do like
to,
the Instagram story,
do it.
Like a little poll.
Do it.
Yeah.
I think because of the state of the East, I would actually, call me crazy, and especially because they're going to have a high draft pick again, I would actually take the Knicks winning more games than Russell Westbrook's 3-point percentage because I don't expect him to shoot more than like 30% from three. So that's my take.
I'm going to agree because, and my follow on to Lou, I was like, he is talented enough and overall good enough to like kind of blip a team into like almost playoff contention, especially in the East.
Yeah.
Like, he's not a winning player like we've talked about, ad nauseum on this pod, but like he is talented enough and a good enough player. Like, if he goes out there and gets triple doubles every night, you're going to win some games. I mean, you might sneak in as like an 8, even with how bad that Knicks roster is. But yeah, I'll take the Knicks winning more games than his 3-point percentage.
You got an answer, Luke?
I think I go with the Knicks. Well, it also depends if they play a full season. I think that comes into account.
True.
But
True.
I do think prorate. Yes, I think I agree. I think Knicks win more games.
I guess, Zach, we got
interesting. If it's 72 games, I'm going to take Russ's 3-point percentage. I think he shoots 28, 29%. I don't think the Knicks beat that in a 72-game season.
You managed to disrespect Russ with 2 statements right there. Which is like a cherry on the top. All right, we'll jump over to the NFL because I know we always want to spend a good bit of time on this, and obviously the relevance of it is great. Let me tee it up. Lou, do you have anyone in particular you want to talk about from this past weekend? You got any particular matchup, anything that happened, anything that caught your eye regarding this weekend's slate of games?
Well, I think I'd like to start with the Monday night game, the Patriots-Jets game. And it's hard to tell whether – I mean, we know the Jets are a bad team, and we think the Patriots are a bad team, but it's always hard to tell with Belichick. But that game, I think the Patriots played very poorly, and I don't think they're a very good team. I think they underperform for what they are, but I still don't think they're a good team. And I think the Jets had some good moments, and I think they, dare I say, played better with Flacco than they would have with
Mr.
Darnold, like
Darnold.
Sam Darnold. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I thought that was just an interesting game, and I was not expecting that turnout. And I think Cam struggled a little bit, and I just think that was an interesting game for that to be as close as it was. It should not have been that close, as for how bad the Jets are and how just the Patriots having the Patriots name and having Belichick.
Yeah, one thing that really cracks me about that game for fantasy implication wise is like the number of people in this country with lineups that, or any of the country with lineups where the Patriots were all they had left going into Monday night, and they needed like 4 or 5 points to win their matchup. And you think for sure the Patriots defense against the Jets is going to win you that matchup, and they get you 2 points. So that was pretty crazy to see Joe Flacco go ball out against the Patriots like that. Good old MVP Joe days back at the what was it? What was the phrase that they said when he won? What was it? Elite money is what he got from the Ravens after they won that Super Bowl, if I remember correctly. Yeah, well he played like he was elite money, with relevant to his recent history on Monday night. So that was interesting. You guys got any takes on that game?
Trevor Lawrence is going to be a Jet. That's all I have to say. I just looked at the standings there. Jacksonville is the only one that's within 1 game. I think Minshew comes back relatively soon.
Minshew ain't starting when he comes back, for the record.
Yeah, that's true. But I just can't see any other team. New York Giants, I think are bad enough, but they just got their new quarterback. They seem to believe in him. I think the Jets are pretty much a solid lock for that number 1 overall pick. So that's the only takeaway I get from every Jets game until the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's the nail in the coffin on the Patriots for me. I mean, I think it was pretty much a done deal that they weren't going to contend this year after some of the last couple games, but I think we kind of held out maybe a glimmer of hope. Even though they won that game, I think that's the nail in the coffin for me. I don't think they have any chance at, even in a 7-team playoff, making it.
I was going to say, going off your take of them getting Trevor, what do you think happens to Sam Darnold then? Where do you think he gets traded? Where do you think he plays in with another team maybe?
I'll take him. I'll happily take him. I think he's slept on. I think he's been in an awful situation. I think you get him a good offensive line. You put him in a position with a good run game, and all he has to do is make the open throws and keep the drive moving. And Sam Darnold is more than capable of doing that, in my opinion. Like, he's not going to be an elite quarterback, but I definitely think he'd win games in the right situation. And he's been on an awful team with no offensive line, a few weapons to play with, an awful coach, and a bad defense. So I think he deserves that shot somewhere else, and I'll happily take him, assuming we're not giving up more than more than, I don't know. I would consider giving up a 2nd-round pick for him, but even that I would be wary of, because some part of me feels like we can get him for less if we already know they're trying to move on from him, similar to that Rosen deal. So yeah, I'll happily take him. Do we want to jump over to another game?
Yeah, I got another game here. So I really want to talk about the Pittsburgh-Dallas game. What in the heck happened in that game?
It's wild, man.
What happened? That was crazy.
That was crazy.
I don't know if there's an answer to that.
From Austin, he threw $2 on the Cowboys to win, and he was going crazy for $2. He was going crazy over $2, but he was just more excited about the fact that was actually what was going to happen for a majority portion of the game until obviously the last 5-6 minutes. Truth be honest, I didn't even watch this game. I was catching some of the other ones. I'm not sure what necessarily went wrong there for Pittsburgh. Just considering the Dallas Cowboys are not known for having a great defense. Like, they have struggled in the past throughout the entire season. But I just think Ben Roethlisberger struggled a little bit, and then the defense gave up early touchdowns, a couple of field goals, and then they were able to finally kind of hunker down in the second half and get the job done for Pittsburgh. But Cy, Ev, I'll kick it over to you guys. Like, what the heck happened in this game?
Yeah, so I think one big thing was it seemed like for the most part the Steelers' run game was neutralized. Like if I saw correctly, James Conner and Benny Snell and whoever else they had back there didn't do a whole lot running wise. And then Ben, I think had an off game, and more credit to the Cowboys there for playing solid defense all around. But he had a rough game, and if I remember correctly, I think he was like hobbling. I think at some point he got hurt and was hobbling around, and like Ben always does, even on like one leg or one arm, he finishes games. So you're not there to finish a game, and they won, but by no means was that a great victory for the Steelers. I'm not scared for the Steelers. You know, like they had one game where they really struggled against it. Admittedly, not a great team playing Garrett Gilbert, who seems to be a better option than Dalton at this point, given the way he went out and showed out this weekend. But I don't know. I'm not like super concerned about the Steelers because of this. Like every team has had a rough week, but at least with rough weeks, they managed to win this one, whereas like a lot of other teams have lost those. So I'm not worried about the Steelers, but a little bit more credit to the Cowboys than I think maybe we've given them over the last couple of weeks, because they took that game down to the wire. And if Gilbert can manage a little bit more and their offensive line gets a little bit healthier, like they're not just going to be a super easy win for everyone that plays them. They proved that this weekend. So that's what I take away from it.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that. Lou, go for it.
I was gonna say I think there's two parts that I think the Steelers, obviously the Steelers have a great defense, but their offense is good, not great, I would say. And if you look at offensive weapons on both those sides, I would, even with the much better quarterback playing in that game, I would still give the offensive weapons to the Cowboys. And I think even against a good defense with those weapons, I think they can kind of they can get some points on the board, they can do stuff. And then I think the Steelers offense just was off on their game, and that combination made it that close.
You know, that's probably pretty even. That's a good question, Lou. Like, well, I'll throw that up to everybody. Do you guys think, excluding quarterback, do you think the skill player positions on offense for the Steelers or the Cowboys are better? With the Steelers, we're talking obviously Juju Smith-Schuster. We're talking James Washington. We're talking Claypool. We're talking Deontay Johnson, and then we're talking James Conner with the mixed up backfield. And then on the Cowboy side, we're talking CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, and Michael Gallup. So that's a lot of offensive firepower on both teams if you consider that. So that's a hard question, actually.
I've got Dallas's playmakers 100%. I think Michael Gallup is still one of the most underrated receivers in the league. But I think it's all the Cowboys invest in. They threw so much money on skill position players. You know, obviously their offensive line is not the offensive line of 3-4 years ago when Zeke and Dak were just running house on defenses. They've collapsed. Like their offensive line is on their heels here. So, you know, there's obviously a lot of other issues in Dallas right now, but from a skill position standpoint, I've got Zeke and the Cowboys.
I think it's tight though. I'd probably go the same way, and I think Zeke is probably the one that puts it over the top, because as good as Connor is, I think he's that's a pretty big gap there, and they're a little more proven. But like Claypool, Deontay Johnson, and Juju, that is a problem.
And James Washington and Eric Ebron.
Yeah, Ebron is solid. I mean,
yeah, didn't even mention Ebron.
Yeah, Connor's a good back too. So, these games are going to happen, like Cy said. I think it's just one of those things. But Zach, who's got another game?
I got one more final game we got to talk about.
Right.
We can switch over to our analytics and our picks and whatnot. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, New Orleans Saints, guys. What in the world happened with this game either? That was a huge yikes.
I mean, what do I have to say? I've been saying all season the Saints have been getting slept on. They've been without Michael Thomas. People aren't giving Drew Brees enough credit. Their defense is going to figure it out. And on the flip side, I've been saying the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are getting too much credit. They beat the Giants by 2 points and they get a ton of credit. They lose to the Bears, and then next week they admittedly beat the Packers by a good margin. They get credit. I said to Zach after that game, I said, you think the Buccaneers are calling up Randy Moss right now and seeing if he'll come out of retirement to come join them? Because apparently they think the solution to getting better is to just add more people. And I think they're forgetting that only one person can catch a football on each play. So all I have to say is this is what I've been saying all year. I'm not coming out here and pretending like I was guessing that the Saints were going to win in the fashion that they won, holding the Buccaneers to 3 points. But am I surprised the Saints beat them by a good margin? No, I'm not. I felt pretty confident that the Saints were the best team in the NFC South from day one, and I've stuck to that. And I think this game proved it, because now they've beaten them twice, and the Saints have managed to win games for most of the season with a lot of injuries around their core players. So they're proving that they know how to win and they know how to show up in the big games. And I don't know that the Bucks are. So that's all I have to say.
I'll piggyback off what you're saying. I agree. The Saints are a good team, and the Bucks can be a good team. I think similar to what I was saying about the Cowboys, I think the Bucks have the offensive weapons to be able to make plays, but I think their offensive players are better and they can make those plays more often. And they have Tom Brady, who this always bites me in the ass every year I say this, but he's washed. He's probably by far the best field general in that position, and he can manage the game like no one else in the game, and I will give him that. And he's not as accurate as he once was. He can't throw the deep ball. He's got all these deep threats that he can't accurately throw to. And the Saints are a good team, and everybody, you're hating on Drew Brees and saying he's getting old, but he's still got it. And Michael Thomas was back this week, and he didn't even do much this week. But even having him as a presence on the field is big to pull some cornerbacks off. But yeah, the Saints are a very good team.
Yeah, I mean, definitely agree. Obviously, huge statement by the Saints. We kind of still, we'll see what we get out of the Bucks offense. I think they'll come around, like I said, for weeks. Obviously, I'm not completely giving up on the Bucks, but yeah, I mean, I think obviously a huge statement made by the Saints, and credit to you, Cy, for always being on that train. But yeah, just shocked that it was not even competitive considering the Bucks. The Bucks were coming off a bad game, so before that game, they kind of had all the momentum, like, oh, they're going to win the Super Bowl, Brady's going to win MVP, and they have a down game, and you say, okay, that's a trap game, okay, that's fine, and then you come out in, probably the biggest game of the year for them, given it's in the division, and just completely lay flat. Antonio Brown back on the field, I mean, just, yeah, bad look all around, but I think it's more just a statement win by the Saints, and then, like I said, not giving up on the Bucks by any means, but yeah, I think the division is the Saints to lose at this point, obviously.
Yeah, I think it comes down to just like one simple thing, and it's like a position threat. So, for example, the Saints, they got their positional players back at receiver. They got Emmanuel Sanders back. They got Mike Thomas back. And as a result, that was more of a threat, right? So they were allowed to have those dump off past to Alvin Kamara without having the entire linebackers or an 8-man box run after Alvin, because that's what they expected. Now they had to kind of be on their heels a little bit more because they got two of their best receivers back. And then on the flip side of things, I think a lot of corners don't respect the threat of Brady as much anymore. And you can see that in the velocity of his throws, or lack of velocity, I should say. Brady has thrown more pick six in this season already than he has in many other years. And it's because he doesn't have that zipper velocity on the ball, especially on those out routes. Like if you see those 10-yard out routes, that's where a lot of his pick sixes are coming from. And you can't blame the guy. He's 40 plus. He just doesn't have the zip on that ball. And what that means for corners is they just see the dollar signs. They see that end zone already, and they're waiting for that receiver to break because, I don't know. Godwin's kind of a possession receiver. AB's considered a possession receiver, despite the fact that he has deep threat potential. And then Mike Evans is like technically a deep threat, but he's not as fast downhill. Like he's still a big hands, like go up and make a catch 10, 15 yards in. When you have all of those players running 10, 15-yard routes, Brady's throws do get somewhat predictable. So, that's just an observation I had that was especially shown in that previous game.
Let me pose a question to you guys, though. We talked a lot about the Patriots picking up momentum as the season, or sorry, not the Patriots, the Buccaneers picking up momentum as the season goes along, right? Clearly, that hasn't been the case these last few weeks with the Giants and the Saints. Were you more worried or more shocked by the performance of their offense with Tom Brady throwing 3 interceptions and them only scoring 3 points? Or were you more worried about the performance of their defense with the Saints putting up the number of points that they did? And it seemed like with ease, like they had 31 points in the first half against a Buccaneers defense that was being argued as top 3 to 5 in the league, which they didn't even look like they showed up. Like that part was kind of mind blowing to me. So I'm curious what you guys are more worried about.
I'm going to go with the defense, because the whole reason that they were getting that hype of, Super Bowl contenders and whatnot was more so because of how strong the defense was playing, which was well better than what we expected. And, I still think the offense is going to come around. So I'm going to go with, obviously the offense is more concerning, but I'm more concerned about the Bucs outlook based on how the defense looked, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of these games they've been winning are because of their defense and how well their defense has been playing. And going into the season, you hear everything about all their weapons and you expect their offense to be good. And just, I personally at least wasn't expecting their defense to be as good as it is. And if their defense can't keep them in games, if their offense is going to have games like this, they're definitely not going to win games, even though they could easily, put up a lot of points in any given game. But they need that defense to kind of keep them in it on a lot of these big games.
I really like this question, Sai, because I'm sure like the normal viewer would like expect us to all say the offense, just given how atrocious they played last week. But I'm also going to go defense as well, because not only they're giving up a lot of points, but they also still have to play heavy pass offenses in the near future. They still have to play Atlanta twice with Julio and Calvin Ridley, and they still have to play Kansas City. I mean, they're going to need wins now, given the loss last week and a couple of their other losses. I think they're sitting at 5-3 or 6-3, maybe 6-3. But they're going to have to get wins, and I think their schedule only intensifies later in the season. So definitely defense.
Yeah, I think Ev summed it up perfectly. I'm with all of you guys. I think it's the defense, but not for the reason of me thinking their defense is worse than their offense, but like what Ev said, it's the fact of the matter is that you expect more from their defense in games that they win. More than you do their offense, because that's the staple of their team. It seems like in a lot of these games that won, the Packers are a perfect example, the way they shut them down, even though their offense didn't score a ton of points. That's what you expect, and that's not what you got against the Saints, and you wonder if this is going to be a repetitive pattern. So we'll see if they bounce back. And speaking of defenses, I feel like we need to have like a weekly 30-second moment of silence for run defenses that Dalvin Cook plays, because at this point, they're running the ball at you, and you can't do a damn thing about it. I love talking about Dalvin Cook, and I love having him in fantasy football, and I know most of you agree with me. Lou, I don't know if you have him in any leagues, but forget about fantasy for a second. Let's just talk about how ridiculous this man has been. He has been single-handedly carrying the Vikings to victories for the last 2 weeks. I haven't seen running performances like this in a long time, and I'm talking pure running. Like, forget receiving. I'm talking give him the ball, and it doesn't matter how many defenders are in front of him. They can't touch him. It's been unreal. So I just he needs a little bit of time to be talked about. He deserves that appreciation. So I'm just putting it out there for you guys if you have any words on that.
Not much to say.
I think you know it. He's an elite running back. If he can stay healthy, I'd say second best in the league behind McCaffrey, which is I still think a compliment to him. But he's elite. That's all you can say.
I think he surpassed McCaffrey at this point, my man. I think Dalvin is straight cooking this season, no pun intended. And I want to give a quick shout out to Julian Fedulian, who signed up and playing ball a good amount. David Johnson is not surpassed Dalvin Cook, and he probably will never will in the future. So just wanted to give him a quick shout out because he's a big DJ fan. And he argued before the season, if I remember correctly, that he would actually have a better season than Dalvin Cook, for given a variety of reasons that make no sense. So, without further ado, we could.
Is this a bad time to plug Julian's podcast? After that,
everyone follow Julian's podcast.
Let's roast his takes and then
plug his podcast. Yeah, I have one honorable mention. I know we don't want to derail this, and it is about the football team, but shout out Alex Smith, who is now a starting quarterback in the NFL again. Just the comeback story continues. Obviously, it was because of a horrible injury to Kyle Allen, which I think was my fault, because if you remember, my hot take last week was about Kyle Allen being the best quarterback in our division. Yeah. So I think I jinxed it. And the other hilarious thing that I wanted to mention, I meant to do it on Lou's intro here, because I was just listening to the episode back. Sai, if you made the joke that you compared me saying Kyle Allen is the best NFC East quarterback to you saying that you're the best pole vaulter in the room, if you remember. Well, we now have a college pole vaulter in the room, which I think is hilarious.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I meant to do that as part of the intro because I literally just listened to the episode back, and I thought that was hysterical that Lou's coming on this week.
Wow, that's crazy.
What are the odds? There you go.
That's wild.
What's your PR, Lou?
14 feet.
Yeah, mine's
in the day.
6 feet. No, mine's actually
Oh, there you
probably
go.
less than that. It's like one of the little boxes, the little box jumps you get, the gym. I'll just go 3 feet. That's what I could do. That's what I could clear.
Hey, if you can get off the ground, that's a start.
I love it. But yeah, we could pivot over to picks. I'll looking at last week. Zach came out on top. It looks like 11-3, impressive week.
Wow.
And you, I had 10, and then our guest, Mr. Matt Penny and Cy were 9-5. So everyone did pretty well.
Wow.
And you guys would be proud to hear that I fixed our money line calculation as well. So Zach and myself were profitable last week. Zach was up about 3 units, which is pretty good. So good stuff. Still on the year. Cy at about 64% is still our season-long champ. Up about 6.5 units on the year. And Zach, you're at 61. I'm at 60. And as always, another solid performance by the guest pickers. So Lou, a lot to live up to.
Pressure's on,
Yeah.
baby.
I'm nervous now. I
Pressure's
get some
on.
pressure.
All right, well, without further ado, we can get into our Week 10 matchups here. We kick it off with the Thursday matchup, Colts at Titans. Big divisional matchup here. I'm actually really pumped that this is our first game of this week. Just starting it with a bang. The line is even. Lou, who you got?
I think I go Colts on this one in a close one. This is I think the Colts defense is outstanding, and I think the Titans, unless Derrick Henry can have a Derrick Henry kind of night as he tends to do, they're going to have trouble playing against that defense. And although the Colts offense has struggled, Titans defense isn't great, and I think the Colts can squeeze by with a close win here.
I'm going to take Titans. This is a true pick 'em for me, though. I've tossed it around quite a bit, but I'm going to go Titans at home.
Who you got, Zach?
I've got Titans simply because I think they score touchdowns, whereas the Colts drive and they kick field goals. I have like a 24-20 game or something, 24-19 game.
I can't fault Zach or Evan for picking the Titans because I agree with you guys. I think offensively we've been driving the ball down the field or committing either stupid mistakes or kicking field goals. I will say, and even though he hasn't gotten a lot of credit this year because of his lack of fantasy performance, we have TY back tomorrow night, and that's huge for us in terms of extending drives. You might want to say that as much as you will, Ev, but as a true Colts fan, like I promise you, when we need those third downs and the way we play offense, that's huge for us. And that alone is why I'm going to pick the Colts, because our defense has continued to be merciless. They held the Ravens to 14 points last week. The Ravens had a defensive touchdown. So I think they'll go out and play real well against Titans offense. So I got my Colts.
Cool. Switching over to our next game, our 1 p.m.ers here. We got the Houston Texans at the Browns. The line is 3 to the Browns. Ev, we'll give you this first one, then Lou, then Cy. So, Ev, who you got in this matchup?
I think it'll be a good game, and it's not a bad bet, but I'll take Cleveland at home off a bye.
Yeah, I have to agree. I don't think the Texans are they can score offensively, but they haven't been playing very well. And the Browns are hit or miss. Hopefully you get them on a hit day, but I think the Browns.
Who you got, Zebo?
I've got Houston in this game. I think Houston comes out and they win big. I love that spread. I would actually take Houston money line, entertaining it actually, just because of the brilliant performance of Will Fuller. Deshaun Watson said something in the post game saying, like, thank gosh we didn't trade that guy because we're gonna start utilizing him to its fullest potential. So I've got Houston upset.
I want to pick Houston, but I think Nick Chubb comes back this week from what we're seeing from practice reports, and that alone has me picking Cleveland because that Cleveland offense was a two-headed monster with him and Kareem Hunt, and I think they get back to their ways there. So I'm going to take Cleveland for that reason. I think it's going to be very close.
Moving forward here, we'll start with E on this one because the Washington football team plays at the Lions. The line was previously 3-4. Now it's 4.5 Detroit's way. Ev, what you got?
Yeah, I think that line is a little more realistic. Detroit at home.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. Detroit hasn't been playing great, but I still think they're the better team, and you got to take them at home. So, Detroit.
Detroit as well for me. Kuna, what about you?
Detroit.
Okay. All right. Moving forward here, we got the Jags playing at the Packers. I can just kick this one off because it's one word. Packers, 100%.
Packers.
Packers. I'm betting the spread.
All right. Well, hey, another
13 and a half.
Wait, you're betting the spread.
I'm not actually putting money on it, but I'm taking that spread. I take the Packers on
That's
that
your
spread.
lock pick?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
No, it's not my lock. No, hold on. It's not my lock pick. I'm saying I expect the Packers to win by 14. That's what I'm saying.
The Jags offense actually looks better with Luton or whatever the heck his name is. Chark came alive. But carry on. We don't need to talk about this.
They did. Yeah. The Jags put up points last week.
The Packers offense looks better with Devontae Adams. Let's continue.
All right. Anyways, I digress here. We'll move on to the next matchup. Divisional matchup, NFC East. Philadelphia Eagles 3-4-1 playing at the 2-7 Giants. The spread is 3.5 Phillies way. Lou, we'll start with you on this one. Who you got?
I'm taking the Giants on this one. Playing at home against a pretty still. I mean, both teams have been struggling, but the Giants have been scoring points offensively. So I think I take the Giants.
The Giants have looked good. I think they might be the better team, so I'm going to take them to win here as well.
Giants as well for me. Go blue.
Sorry, we can't.
Eagles.
Thank you. We can't all do that. You guys, we did it again last week picking the Washington football team.
And they lost.
We got to stop that. So good job, Si. That means you're going to get that right.
Yeah, I was about to say, Si, you're going to cash in on that one. Another divisional matchup, NFC South. We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers looking for their identity at this point. Going up to Charlotte, playing the Carolina Panthers. Spread is 5.5 Tampa Bay's way. I like that spread. I'm going to go Tampa Bay to win, but I also think they cover that. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, we disagree here. I think Tampa Bay will win without McCaffrey. I presume that he will be out.
Yeah.
So I'll take Tampa Bay, but don't feel good about that spread at all based on last week's performance.
Yeah, I don't like that spread at all in Tampa Bay's favor. I think it'll be a close game. I mean, sure they could cover it, but I don't know what they've done the last 2 weeks to convince me that they'll decisively win that game. But the fact that McCaffrey's out, I'm taking Tampa Bay to win by a close margin.
Yeah, I think even with McCaffrey out, I think in a close one, I take the Panthers on this one.
Oh, I like that.
Especially, this might be recency bias based on last week performances, but Panthers offense looked good.
Game, I respect that. Moving forward here to our 405 game. Si, we'll start with you on this one. The Denver Broncos, fresh off a loss in Atlanta, are playing at the Las Vegas Raiders in the Death Star. The spread is 5 Las Vegas's way. Who you feeling on this matchup?
Run the ball with Josh Jacobs, throw the ball to Darren Waller. Raiders.
The Raiders are good. I don't dislike that 5-point spread either. Raiders.
Yeah, I agree. I go to the Raiders. They've been playing well.
Raiders for me as well, even though I hope Drew Lock keeps it close and gets a couple last-minute touchdowns and need it for fantasy implications. Switching over to the game that we were talking about earlier, the Los Angeles Chargers playing at the Miami Dolphins. Miami is rocking a 2.5 spread right now. Lou, we'll kick it over to you because you're a Dolphins guy. I'm assuming no question Tua, right? Or what you got in this one?
Yeah, no question I'm going to. I think that's a low spread. I think Dolphins are coming off a couple big wins, and playing at home against a quarterback I think they can kind of neutralize with their defense. So I go Dolphins.
What was the spread again, Zach?
2.5.
2.5 Miami's way.
At home.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
At home.
Yeah, this is whatever you want to call it, a best bet. I think I got 2 best bets this week. This is 1-on-1 Dolphins win and cover. It is hard to contain Herbert. Herbert always keeps it close, but they find a way to lose. But yeah, 2.5 says that they think the Chargers are better than the Dolphins, which I think is garbage. Lou and I were talking about it before. I mean, the Dolphins look really, really solid. So
do I think? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Zach.
All right,
I was gonna say, do I? Go ahead.
I'll edit all this out. It's no big deal.
we're not actually going to edit it out, though.
We're not editing it out. Go ahead.
Gonna go.
All right. And this is Mondays Down South. All right. I'm going to pick. Do I think the Dolphins are the better team than the Chargers? Yes. Do I think the Dolphins will beat the Chargers this week? No. I'm taking the Chargers this week. I think the Chargers are going to come out really dang hot after these last 2 losses that they had. So I'm taking the Chargers this week.
Well, Well, that might be tough for us to decide on a bet then, Zach.
Yeah,
Carry
no, we
on.
got over the Raps, but I do respect the picks. I have the Miami covering, and I think Miami's defense is going to really, really test Herbert. I think Herbert's going to have his first major bad game of the year. He's going to have his welcome to the league moment, I should say, as a rookie. If you look at the Dolphins defense, I believe, Lou, and correct me if I'm wrong here, they've converted 2 defensive touchdowns and a couple of special teams touchdowns. So they run away early. And if they can continue this defensive dominance, I think they could really, really pose a problem for Herbert. I could see a very sobering performance for him. Just my opinion. But moving forward here to one of our final 405 games, Buffalo Bills are playing at the Cardinals. Right now, the spread is minus 1.5 Arizona's way.
Yeah, this is one we didn't mention from last week, but the Bills beating the Seahawks at home and scoring 44 points, even though the Seattle's defense is awful. But the Bills look super, super legit. It's tough going out west, but the Dolphins just went out west and didn't have any problems. So I'm not going to pick against the Bills here, even though Arizona's favored.
Yeah, I'm taking the Bills.
Yeah, the Bills look really good. I mean, their offense is clicking and their defense is good. So I go Bills.
You know, I think Cliff Kingsbury is the only one that can develop some type of scheme to throw the Bills off guard. The Bills are disciplined, they're organized, and I think that's why they outperform their opponents. But I just think the Cardinals are a different beast, and Kyler's coming off a very fresh game. I've got the Cards in this one, guys. I think the Cards come out and sneak one out, especially at home too, in a much-needed win, considering they're 5-3. Moving over to a divisional matchup here, the Seattle Seahawks are playing at the Rams. The Rams are still favored through Wednesday, guys, 1.5 LA's way. Ed, we'll start with you. Who you got?
Here's my other best bet. Take the Seattle money line there. I don't think the Rams are actually that good. And yeah, the Seahawks are going on the road here, but coming off a loss, and it's not like they have to travel across the country. It's a short trip. Seattle.
I agree with that. I take Seattle money line. They've had a couple bad games, but they're a really good team.
Seattle
I feel really bad for Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf and Lockett and all those guys on offense, putting up the points that they've been putting up, and their defense blowing the games that they have. But having Jamal Adams back for a second week, I'm going to take Seattle in this one.
I've got Seattle money line as well.
Moving
on to our final matchups here. We got the 49ers at the Saints. The Saints spread right now is 9.5, most likely as a result of their previous game. I'm not sure if anyone's coming back for the 49ers. I believe Mostert has a chance. Ev, we'll start with you. Who you got in this one?
Yeah, well, they'll get their COVID guys back, which is Ayuk and Kendrick Bourne, so that's big. And then Mostert and Debo both have a chance, whatever that means from Kyle Shanahan. But Saints will win. Maybe a tough cover, though. But
I say Saints. I take the Saints. Tough cover, but
I'm going to go Saints as well. I'm like entertaining the idea of they're all coming back from injury. It's not going to happen. Saints win by a landslide. I think that's a pretty fair spread, to be honest. Bengals at Steelers here. Steelers.
Did we skip you?
Undefeated. No, so I went first.
Yeah, I said I'll take the Saints. I'm actually going to take the spread for them too.
Good stuff. All right, Bengals at Steelers here. Pittsburgh is rocking a 7-point spread. I personally like that. Maybe I can kick this one off here. I think the Bengals cover that spread, but I think Pittsburgh wins, if that makes sense. So I got Pittsburgh from a win standpoint.
This is going to be a fun one. Joe Burrow going into Heinz Field for the first time, man. He's going to be excited coming off that bye week. Mixon might come back, although it looks actually kind of doubtful, which was a surprise. But Steelers win. We'll see about the spread, but I'm excited for that game. I think it's going to be kind of fun.
Who you got, Luke?
Yeah, I think the Steelers win and they cover. They always play well in those divisional games, and they'll bounce back after a tough win this week.
Yeah, I see the Steelers winning on a touchdown on like a last-minute drive. That's what I see.
I see that. Kicking over to another AFC matchup, the Sunday night game. This is an interesting one. Patriots fresh off a win here. They're going to try to continue this win streak in order to have some type of playoff hope. Baltimore Ravens coming to town fresh off a victory. Now, albeit it wasn't pretty. So the Baltimore Ravens are playing at the Patriots. Right now the spread is 7 Baltimore's way. Ev, you want to kick this one off? This is a tough one for me.
Yeah, I think these are two teams trending in the opposite direction. Baltimore, I've been hard on them in the last few weeks, but after that impressive win over the Colts, I'm starting to tick back up with Baltimore, and then the Patriots, like I said, I think they're done. So I'm going to take Baltimore. I don't know if they cover, but I do like the over-under here, which I think is like 44, if I'm not mistaken, 43.5. So I think that's a good over for me.
Go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a close one. I think the Ravens had a good game last week, but have been struggling this season in general. And I think Belichick can have a good scheme against them. And if the Patriots play well, they definitely got a chance to win this. But I think I take the Patriots, a close one.
Ooh, who you got, Zebro?
I like that pick, Lou. I've been thinking about that too, but I got to go Baltimore's way. However, I agree with Ev. I love the over on that. That might be my lock-in bet of the week. Cash it in, ladies and gentlemen. Patriots, Ravens, over 43.5.
I actually thought I was going to be the only one to pick the Patriots, but Lou beat me to the punch, so I guess we're together on this one, brother. I'm going Patriots.
There we go.
The one thing I wanted to mention, I'm doing all the things I wanted to mention in awful order, but sorry about that. But I thought it was interesting. Lamar came out today and said that their offense has been super predictable and that the defense is actually calling out what plays they're running before they happen. I thought that was pretty interesting. And hopefully now that they've kind of raised that issue, they can kind of figure it out and start to disguise the plays better on offense. But I thought that was an interesting thing that came out today or at some point this week.
Geez, that's a pretty interesting point. It actually leads into this final game because speaking of predictable offenses, just give it to Dalvin, the Minnesota Vikings. But guess what? You still can't stop it, even if you know it's coming. So Minnesota Vikings are playing at Chicago. Right now the spread is leaning 2.5 Minnesota's way. I can kick this one off here. Final game Monday night. I have got the Bears to win this, and I have them. So obviously they're going to cover. I have the money line. I'm confident in that. As much as I've been hating on the Bears this season, I think their defense plays extra tough at home. And I think Nick Foles, now, rocking a 2-game losing streak. Now the Bears are 5-4. I think it's time for them to turn it around. I got the Bears winning this one Monday night.
You got it, Luke.
I think this will be a good game, but I think they're both kind of fake good teams. But I think I take Dalvin Cook against that good Bears defense over Nick Foles doing anything useful.
What you got, E?
Yeah, I'm going to pick Vikings, but Zach, I like where your head is at. If nothing else, betting against Kirk Cousins on Monday Night Football is usually a good strategy. I don't know if he still hasn't won a Monday Night Football game, but he is a nightmare in prime time. Again, like we mentioned, I just hand it off to Dalvin. That's all you need to do. So I'm going to take Vikings, but it's like the Vikings aren't good enough to just keep beating everyone. So I don't know. That's a tough one.
I think the Vikings defense has been playing better the last couple of weeks. I think the other point to note, though, is that the Bears just held Derrick Henry to like 70 yards rushing or something like that. So clearly their defense is better than what the Vikings have run into recently. I'm still going to take the Vikings, though, because even with the run game being stopped, Justin Jefferson, or as Zach likes to call him, George Jefferson, and Adam Thielen, and even Irv Smith are all showing up. So I really do think the Vikings offense could be legit, and that's why I'm taking the Vikings to beat the Bears this week. Lou, thank you for coming on, brother. Any last words for the guests?
I appreciate you having me. Ready for a good season this year for the Dolphins and even a better one next year.
Good luck to your Fins, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Yeah. That was Mondays Down South. Catch y'all next week. Peace out.